Hi, this is Celeste, and this is a breaking news story. It's actually an update to something that I did 2 years ago on the Barcode for Life. And so, as usual, let's go ahead and share screen. Okay, so can't organize my tab, so I'm just gonna give it to you. It's not the order I would prefer, but it is the order that is up here. And so I'm just going to go ahead and do that and get my cord out of the way. So one of the updates, as you know, the Barcode for Life program was started. They officially say 2004. It was before that by the Rockefeller Foundation. And what I just discovered is that now the Smithsonian is getting into the DNA barcode network, and that's the acronym is SIBN. And this right here is going to be the future website for it. It doesn't have one right now. It's barcoding.si.edu. So with that, let's see if I can figure out. Okay, let's go to my next. Oh, wait a minute, get that one out. Okay, the next thing I want you to be aware of is that the Barcode for Life, now that all commercial food does have the platforms in it where you can be remotely given a drug or a vaccine at any time remotely. I just want you to know that they are now including the food webs. Let me see. I know I have trouble seeing this. So this kind of looks a little bit like the World Economic Forum. So what they are doing is mapping out what every single life form on Earth eats, including humans. And you are going to, in the future, depending on the United Nations mandates, you will be either allowed or not allowed to access that food. And it, as you can see, with this is all directed and experimental evolution. So this is the evolutionary trajectory interacting of the species. So I don't want you to think that, oh, this is the benevolence, just as we learned with Dr. James Gorodano, that his definition of good and benevolence is not our definition of good and benevolence. So I wanted you aware that this is all new in 2022. I want you to know. So right now they give you some examples of the different, well, since everything, well, I don't know. I'll just stay on this. They don't have humans in this particular on this particular page, but they will very shortly. Or I mean, I think that I know that they have their food web diagrams. So, and that illustrates the trophic or the feeding relationships in an ecological community. They're important tools for the study of biotic interactions that determine energy flow. Once again, it's beginning to look a lot like energy as currency. And that is going to be between organisms that we're going to have to pay for that energy. So let's get that out. And this is the National Institute of Health coverage on BOLD, which is the Barcode of Life data system. You can access it by www.barcodinglife.org. And actually, I didn't do that of all the ones I didn't. But this is the National Institute, or actually, it's the U.S. National Laboratory of Medicine, National Institute of Health. So let's see. It gives you an overview if you have not heard David Icke and myself talking about the Barcode for Life. It may be something that you want to look at this particular introduction to what it is. Kind of gives a summary of what they have done, how comprehensive is it. Like, so they say it was launched in May 2004, 120 organizations, 45 nations, and they're doing this barcode library. So I'm not going to go through all of this. I just want you aware of it. There's species names, voucher data, collection record, identifier of the specimen. I don't know what that is. PCR test for every organism in existence on planet Earth, and trace files. So they're drilling down. They want to know, not for the purpose of benevolence, but for the purpose of controlling every single creature, for lack of a better word, on Earth. You can go through here. This is a database, so you can plug in things like if you want to say cats or whatever and look that up. And you can do a range of different things. So this just goes and shows you what the bold database, and it's alive and running and kicking, and we're going to see how far they've come in just 2 years. I mean, they've been chipping away, but it was very slow in the beginning. But now they're really getting their traction going for 2022. So we'll get rid of that one. Then I got to go over here. They're taking a census. Now they're kind of shifting over to this word census instead of barcoding, because I think barcoding, the cat was out of the bag with that. So now they're starting to talk about the census, and that it's a good thing that everything gets into the census for scientists and policymakers, for educators and the public, and for the census community, which is really a swap and trade of assets between countries. And look at, there's I'll have to look at that one. National Geographic's a part of it. Anyway, there's quite a bit in here, but we're not going to take the time. So this was just in the last 10 years. Google is a big player. And if you receive the PLOS journals, they are a part of it. There's a lot of different actors in this. They've got the Tree of Life project, where they are doing a census of all of the different trees and the different things that inhabit them and eat them. So this is all trees, everything you ever wanted to know about trees, down to the molecular level. We haven't got to the good stuff. This is totally backwards, but I apologize. So this is the Encyclopedia of Life. This is new. This is an online or virtual natural museum of natural history. There's biodiversity cards. And when they mean biodiversity, what they actually mean is through a PCR test, every single natural thing gets a PCR test. It is a sacrifice of their blood. And then it goes into the databases, and then starts the directed evolution and experimented evolutionary edits to that organism. and they know the precise point at which they're going to patent you, patent your activities, that type of thing. Once again, it is not for their benevolence. That you can explore the food webs, who's eating who, traits, who's like, who, what different types of traits they have. Are they nocturnal or not? For kids, you can do these biodiversity cards, but it's very deceiving. It looks like it's very environmentally friendly, but it is far from it. And then, of course, they want you to join the discussion in their forum, and they're going to harvest all the thoughts that you have, not only on their program, but where certain types of life forms live. Then there's the Catalog of Life. That's pretty new, and it's maintained by hundreds of global taxonomists. And this, they do a catalog. So they did one in December of 2021, and you can look up the different kingdoms. And of course, we have been talking about kingdoms. So if this wasn't my Mac, I would click on the button because I love to go down the rabbit hole, but I'm on my Mac. And if I get it down the rabbit hole, I might not get back. And we need to keep on track here. So they have data that you can browse and metadata. You can find out about the Catalog of Life, who are the actors, what is the pipeline, who are the contributors, who is funding it, the governance behind it, and even a glossary. They do have a news segment. I love to go to the various news segments and find out what exactly they're doing. And I'm going to be spending some time doing that in the days to come. So then there's ITIS, the Integrated Taxonomic Information System. Now this is the really drilling down, and look at the players, the USGS and the Smithsonian, as far as the census and categorizing all life on planet Earth, and then proceeding to edit it. And like I said, they can tell exactly how far the edit process, which editing tool they tried, and if it worked, if it didn't work, by this constant PCR test of you being this sacrificial system to the beast system, I believe, that will eventually control you if you allow it to. Here's the taxonomy browser. And this is, once again, like the National Institute of Health. And you can go into these different, now this right here was really important in the ATOM project that I just did. This does go into humans. It does go into mycoplasma pneumonia. There's, it would be fun to just spend a day, a nice snowy day, and, just look and see what they have in here. So if you wanted to look up a species and where it was going and the particular edits, you might want to bookmark this page because this is an actual browser. And we already did this one. So this is, once again, if you're not, so there's eyeball, which is with an I, B-O-L, and then there's C-B-O-L, that supposedly kicked off, but at 2004, but like I mentioned, they had started it earlier, and it goes into the intellectual property, what their agenda is. It does have hyperlink, maybe not. Maybe originally it did have hyperlinks, but this one doesn't have it. Their modus operandi, and don't forget, they do have a manifesto. So here we've got a manifesto, we've got a modus operandi, which is how they operate. We've got their different roles in their memorandums that they've signed. So if you might want to just take a peek, because this is only a few pages long, and you can see that they would really want to barcode DNA, and they were going to work at it as fast as they could. And they started with, oh, those wildlife species out in the wild that nobody pays any attention to. So anyway, moving right along, let's see, this is this one. Okay, then we've got Barcode of Wildlife, and this is a consortium. Here is their logo up here. Of course, it is all DNA based, and I'll give you a peruse through here. This is the player, lots of players. They have a dashboard. This is mostly your third world countries. I didn't see much, but this progress dashboard was kind of interesting. Getting organized, selecting the targets, and you are a target, setting the rules, they got that ready, getting ready, which is what they did for the first 20 years, meeting the standards, which that was done probably prior to 2020, construction of reference library. They are still in progress with that, pilot testing, and get this, what they are going to be doing is criminal cases prepared by investigators and presented by prosecutors using DNA barcode as evidence. And they're going to do this about many different crimes. Remember, it is a revenue stream, and in the future, if you take anything from nature, which is forbidden by the UN now, you will be tried for crimes against the environment or the wildlife. And so you will not be able to run to the hills or the woods and go get that deer, because they will hunt you down, because they've got everything barcoded. So since last year, this is the International Barcode of Life, or eyeball. And of course, they're trying to save the planets. They have now 200 nations. Look at how many DNA barcodes they have right now. This isn't real time. I don't know how often they update this. The number of species. They started with barcode 500K. That's done. That was between 2010, 2015. Supposedly we are in bioscan right now, but I don't believe that that's really where we're at. I believe that we're at the Planetary biodiversity mission, which gets 50 nations on board and tracks ecosystems, tracks everything in those ecosystems using things like hydrogel and quantum dot. And so this will tell you all about, they're kind of, if you think we are in bioscan, they say it goes to 2027, but realistically they want all humans at least depopulated by 2025. So I think the realistic date was 2019 for its start, but I would say, well, by the time you get all the insects and everything, it might be 2027, but as far as humans go, it's 2025. They're going to have some barcoding and biodiversity conferences. They're going to have some webinars on macrogenetics. This is beginning to build momentum and steam, a lot like the World Economic Forum. So I just wanted you to be aware that this just came out. Let's see if this gives the date down here. Copyright 2022. So it just came out. If you're unfamiliar, you can go down here to the site map at the very bottom, and then you can go to the home, the programs, the DNA barcoding, and the news and events. So that's that one. So now I've got to get my email. That's not the right one. Okay, now what I want to do is, since they are starting to talk census, I wanted to bring the biblical, connect the dots with the biblical framework. So we're going to look at a few passages in scripture about the census. When you take a census of the Israelites to register them, each of the men must pay a ransom for himself to the Lord as they are registered. Listen to this. Then no plague will come on them as they are registered. Exodus 30:12. So basically, God is the only one, as we'll learn here in a few minutes, that's supposed to order a census of the people. And the men then pay a tribute to who? God, not the beast system, New World Order. And then if you do that, what happens? Then no plagues will come upon them as they are registered. So if you do participate in a census, you know, and you pay a ransom for your soul, blood money, if you will, then you might get some plagues that come upon you. Let's go on down. Take a census of the entire Israelite community by their clans and ancestral houses, counting the names of every male one by one. Numbers 1-2. So basically, God was ordering a census of the human race, kind of, if you use Israelite as a metaphor for the humanity. And then they only counted the males. And as we saw in Operation Adam, they want to knock off the males and are really aggressive about wanting to do that. Do not register or take a census of the tribe of Levi with the other Israelites, Numbers 149. And why is that? Well, if you're a kingdom of priests, as we are in the New Testament, then we are all Levites in a kingdom of priests. It says over and over in the New Testament. So we should not register or take part in a census. Your corpses will fall in the wilderness, all you who were registered in the census, the entire number of you 20 years old or more, because you have complained about me. Numbers 14:29. So basically, this starts out with a whole lot of people die that were registered in the census, and they are 20 years and above. And why? Because they complained about me. And part of that, I believe, is this choice that we're being given now to worship the pharmaceutical companies, to worship the beast system, to worship the New World Order, if you will, which is in essence saying, God, you're not good enough. So that is a big complaint. It doesn't necessarily mean you cuss and you use the Lord's name in vain. You are complaining about the provision, the protection, and your inheritance and intimate relationship with the Most High. So take a census of those 20 years old or more, as the Lord commanded Moses and the Israelites who came out of Egypt. So basically the reason for the 20 years, so they usually use the age of accountability as 12 and 13, but in the Bible, 20 years old was considered military age for men or women. Those were the ones that were able to fight. And usually at 70, a person retired. So next one is very interesting. Then Satan attacked Israel by inciting David to enumerate a census of Israel. 1 Chronicles 21:1. So basically, this is saying that Satan attacked God's people because the leaders, who was David at the time, decided to do a census that was not called by God. David did this for his own reasons, and he repented of that, but there was a cost for that. And so I just wanted to bring that to your attention, that this is a satanic attack. And if you go into this eyeball and COBOL and Barcode for Life, you can really see the desire to control all life on earth, including humans. Levi and Benjamin were not included in the census because the king had commanded. It was unethical to Joab. So there were tribes that were not included in the census because what the king had commanded was unethical. That is exactly the situation that we are finding ourselves in right now. This is not a census called by God. This is a census called by Satan, and we should not participate in it as much as we have will not to. David did not complete a census of those younger than 20, since the Lord had said that he would make Israel as numerous as the stars of heaven. 1 Chronicles 27:23. And I thought that that was very interesting because, of course, 20 years old in military age, you might get into a battle, you might fall. But by not recording them as 20 years or fighting age, that these young people could just grow up, that they wouldn't be threatened, that they would be protected and nurtured, and that they could become as numerous as the stars of heaven. I just thought that that was a really neat blessing that's just tucked in there. The Lord writes in the consensus book of nation, or the census book of the nations. So there's a census book of the nations that God writes in. This one was born there, Selah, Psalm 87:6. And then, of course, there was a census at the time that Jesus Christ was born. But it came to pass in those days that a decree came out from Caesar Augustus that a census should be made of all the habitable world. Luke 2:1. And we have returned, my friends, back to that day. Of course, they were just looking at humans back then, and specifically, there was, yeah. So, and then this is the last one, and all went to be inscribed in the census roll, each into his own city. Luke 2:3. Now, there is a book of life. There's the Lamb's book of life, and we're to be inscribed in that book, not inscribed in a census, especially if that census is not coming from the Lord. It doesn't say that there was anything, it didn't address that specifically, but we have just looked at the different various verses on censuses. There are others, but I just took the highlights because I didn't want this too terribly long. So let me make sure that I got all my tabs. So I hope that you gleaned a little bit about the update with eyeball and cobalt and this barcode for life. It's on a tear right now. They're really going great guns to edit all life on Earth, which is a proclamation that they made at the first Asilomar conference in 1975. And now we're seeing it come to pass. So pray about this. Um, Resist as best you can. Like for some things, we can't stop breathing. But other things like pharmaceutical products, we have a choice. So I just hope that this was informative to you, and we'll see you the next time that I have some breaking news.